The whole point of giving a refundable deposit is to have it refunded, right? So when it doesn't happen, well, someone might have to lose their license. We'll get into that story in just a bit, but first, my family is making a homophobic cake decorator make hundreds of pride cakes. This one grocery store in my town offers custom cakes out of their bakery section, not a Walmart. Their only cake decorator is a nasty bench of a woman with even nastier opinions about gay people, and she's a real piece of work, let me tell you. One of my siblings, who's LGBT+, works in the store too, and they've been fed up with this lady for a while. Well, a couple days ago, this sibling told my family that for their upcoming birthday, they want us to custom order them a pride-themed cake from the store so that this homophobic woman will have to make a cake that stands for everything she so openly hates. My family is going to do this, but we're doing so much more than that, too. One of my other siblings already ordered a pride cake so that we could all have cake just because. My mother ordered a pride cake to give to our favorite, and openly gay, barista at a coffee shop we like. My wife ordered a pride cake just because she loves me and knows I love cake. You see where this is going? I have a lot of siblings. My siblings have families and friends. I have family and friends. And our family and friends have their own share of family and friends, and so on. And because we're not pieces of crap, and because in my family we all share a powerful strand of petty DNA, we all are ordering pride cakes. This homophobic cake decorator will be making hundreds of pride cakes this month. And the icing on the pride cake? The cake decorator's manager saw the first cake, the first one my sibling ordered, and loved the concept. The manager figures they can sell extra cakes this month if they advertise that they can theme them for Pride Month. She's definitely right. So she told the decorator to make one for the display case. Now, all the LGBT+ in town will see it, and this homophobic waste of space will have to make even more pride cakes. Sometimes life is beautiful. It brings me genuine joy to think of this woman spending her month making more cakes than this town orders in a typical year, and all of them themed for pride. Best Benefit 3593 commented, "Why not give your money to a bakery that supports your values instead of forcing somebody who doesn't? It's ironic because they're funding her instead of boycotting her." Also, hey everybody, my name is Brendan, and if you guys enjoy these ProRevenge videos, it would be amazing if you liked the video and commented down below if you're listening to our podcast. Now then, our next story is, she always called me, quote, just the boyfriend, so I helped her move, quietly. My girlfriend's sister never liked me. Every time we were around family, she'd say stuff like, "You're just her boyfriend, not family," or "Don't get too comfortable." I let it slide for over a year because I didn't want to start drama. A few months ago, she needed help moving apartments. Nobody else was free, and she asked me. I said sure, showed up early, loaded the truck, even brought her a coffee. She was kind of shocked. When we finished, she just looked at me and said, "I didn't think you'd actually show." I just smiled and said, "Yeah, I'm just the boyfriend of your sister, remember?" She stared at me for a second and acted like guilty. She's been way more respectful since. You know, I will always say the best way to counter someone that's treating you poorly that doesn't really know you is to just kind of kill them with kindness and make them feel like, the ones that have messed up and make them feel that shame. So yeah, great move there, OP. Doesn't really matter the cheap little comment she said, just, continue to be a good human being. Senior Mono commented, "This is my favorite form of petty revenge. Petty because you can't help but twist the dagger showing she's being a jerk to you, but also sticking to your morals and being a good dude and helping out." M13 Alpha replied, "You see, it's the slow knife, the knife that takes its time, the knife that waits years without forgetting, then slips quietly between the bones. That's the knife that cuts deepest." Our next story is, impatient guy at self-serve car wash. I was at the self-serve coin-op car wash washing my classic car. Now, many people don't consider this car a classic because it's a 96, and people still don't think that 90s cars can be classic. And most of this car you see on the road is rusted to crap and not well taken care of. So I'm in one of the bays washing my car. It had some bird poop on it and other crud. So after the foam brush and rinse, I like to go around my car with a small sponge and get rid of any dirt, poop, or whatever that didn't come off before I wax it. The car wash had all the bays full, but no one waiting. A guy pulls up behind me to wait as I'm rinsing off the foam. Oops. I noticed some bird poop that did not come all the way off in a few spots, so I grabbed my sponge to get rid of it. Guy starts honking his horn. I ignore him and continue with the poop sponging. He then yells at me, "Go pull up and wipe down your car over there. Some people are frickin' waiting." So I just gave the dude a thumbs up, walked over to the change machine and got another $10 in quarters. Put them all in and started over with the wash, taking my sweet time, making sure I sprayed the pre-wash 3 times around the car. Took 3 minutes per tire to really scrub them down. Really meticulous, thorough clean. Finally, he just threw up his hands and pulled up behind one of the other customers. Freak that idiot. So, contrary to the story that we just read, the one before this one, this is a situation where I don't think acting like this is ever going to make a situation better or make someone fall in line and do what you want them to do. So, I like that OP just kind of dug their heels in the sand here and said, you know what, yeah, forget that, we're just going to do this over and waste more of your time. Avid Learner Bot commented, "What a glorious celebration of OCD car washing. Really shut down that impatient jerk with his meticulous sponge work. This is some really hardcore detailing right here. Love how he just upped the game and gave that ride a top-to-bottom scrub down despite being annoyed. Car's probably shining brighter than his honker's ego after this." And OP replied, "She, actually, and I love that car and kept it mint. I'll have to buy another one soon." Our next story is, "Call the cops on me? I'll ruin your name with honesty." This happened about 15 years ago. I got fired from a store I'd worked at for 3 years. The owners were never there. My main floor manager had trained me for his position, as he was leaving soon. Training went on for a few months. One day, right before he bowed out, one of the supervisors asked me to run across the street to a convenience store to get him snacks. I asked if I should clock out, and he said no. I was gone for 15 minutes. The owner came in during that time and noticed I was gone but clocked in. He confronted me when I came back and I told him what I was doing, even offered to amend the timesheet. A few days later, the manager who trained me was gone for good, his scheduled departure, and a new hire arrived. The owners asked me to train her on a few things, so I gladly did. The moment she understood the basics, I was called into the back. "We need to let you go. We really think you committed time theft." Then they cried? I got up after those words were spoken, and they shouted at me that they really just wanted to talk about it. I said, "Sounds like there's nothing to talk about." I grabbed my purse from the staff room, walked into the manager's office, set my store key down, and went home. That night, one of the other staff members called me to tell me there were notes all over the doors of the place saying, "My name, we have informed the police of your thievery and they're monitoring the building. Don't try anything." I was literally at home filing for unemployment trying to figure out how to pay my bills. They didn't see my key on their desk. They made me wait until payday to pick up my last check. So I remembered I handled all their social media accounts. I informed the public, under their name, about all the tax fraud they were committing and how crap they were to the loyal staff. Signed it the owner's name and logged off. A lot of the current staff members liked it. When my final check arrived, they called me in, I walked up to the owner, and he tried to hold it behind his head so we could talk about the post I made. I said everything I stated was true, snatched the check out of his hand and left. Ended up getting max out unemployment benefits for the full 18 months. Used that money to start my own business. The thief in question happened to be the supervisor who told me not to clock out, was stealing the petty cash and swiped a bottle of painkillers out of another staff member's purse when she was healing from a surgery. I've seen them struggle to find staff and a new shady accountant ever since. What the job was doing here sounds definitely pretty bogus, so yeah, OP handled this, I think, in an appropriate way. She was done dirty and, sometimes what goes around comes around. Perfect Scene 9541 commented, "Time theft. Right. That there's leverage speak. They didn't understand the way they overreached their weak hand. Good job defending yourself. Brilliant." And OP replied to this, "They had us pencil in our time, then they would erase it and change it depending on if and how much we used our store credit during the pay period. Small grocery store. It was shady AF, and we were always indebted to them in one way or another." And another user added, "I worked at a place that had us do that, and I would notice my hours wouldn't add up to my pay, so I started using Pen. One week, I literally found a new time card had been filled out with the new hours, and none of it was in my handwriting. I wish I'd known then what I know now, because holy freak could I have reported them for a ton of freaked up crap. Wage theft was just the tip of the iceberg. This was over 20 years ago, though, and I was only 19 and scared for my life, thinking if I did anything, I'd become homeless since I lived on site. Our next story is, my boss kept scheduling meetings during my lunch, so I started eating lunch in every meeting. I used to take my lunch break at the same time every day, 12 to 1. I don't eat breakfast, just coffee and lots of water, so my lunch is essential and I can't just skip it. My calendar was blocked, but my boss, newly promoted, power tripping, started scheduling meetings right in the middle of it. The first couple times I let it slide, figured maybe it was urgent, but then it became a pattern. I pushed back and reminded him that it was during my break, and he said, well, we all have to make sacrifices sometimes. Got it. Next meeting, I showed up with a full plate of spaghetti and meatballs, had my camera on and mic unmuted, slurping and chewing, occasionally gave thumbs up while mid-bite. A few days later, it repeated, so I brought sticky wings. Last week, on Thursday, it happened again. Glad I still had my pizza. He finally asked, do you have to eat during the meeting? I smiled and said, we all have to make sacrifices sometimes. It's Friday today. We didn't have any meetings during my lunch hours this week. Sometimes people need to hear their own words kind of clap back at them to realize how silly they sound. So, yeah, petty, yes. Appropriate, also yes. Purple Elephant 01 commented, love it! I took over a new org a few years back. Every meeting was 7 to 8 a.m. I explained I couldn't do that for my kids' school drop-off. The response I got was, figure it out. So every single meeting I scheduled was 5 to 6 p.m. When people complained, my response was, figure it out. Suddenly, all morning meetings moved to a reasonable time. After another week to make my point, I moved mine as well. Our next story is, accidental petty revenge. I'm not positive this qualifies as a petty revenge, but I'll try posting it anyway. I worked as an executive secretary for a Class A jerk. Consequently, other departments were not eager to cooperate with him, and I unfortunately bore the brunt of a lot of hate. Can't face the man directly, so crap on his assistant. One of his colleagues in a different department, June, was just another hateful, horrible person, and I was directed by my boss to work on a project with her. June did everything she could to let me know, 1, I was a worthless peon, 2, anything I had to offer in the way of skills were not appreciated, and 3, any priorities my boss wanted would be summarily ignored. After one particularly humiliating meeting with June and all of her direct reports letting me know I should just STFU, I was so ticked off for even being in the position in the first place. Once June had left, I said to the entire group, I swear to God, if it's the last thing I do, I'll get that bench fired. Mind you, I had zero authority to get anyone other than myself fired, but fortune smiled on me. Unbeknownst to me, or anyone, June had been fraudulently messing with important records and was fired by the senior leadership 3 days later. It was all very hush-hush because no one wanted it to be broadcast what shady things she'd been up to. The only reason I knew what happened was because of the high position of my own boss. Her entire group of direct reports actually thought that I had somehow gotten her fired, and they never treated me poorly again. In fact, they were incredibly cooperative anytime I had to ask them to do something on behalf of my own jerk boss. So, petty revenge? Yay or nay? Well, regardless of anyone's opinion on this, yay or nay, I do think that this is definitely some karmic justice. Someone with a massive superiority complex got their comeuppance, and if I'm OP, I'm absolutely feeding into this rumor, stoking the fire and saying, yeah, it was me, I did it. Come on, you want some too? Candyland Canada replied, the most scrumptious part of this is that 999 times out of 1,000, it wouldn't have worked out, and you would have been in trouble for calling her a bench and threatening her job. The fact that it appeared to your colleagues that you are omnipotent is delightful. Long live OP! And OP replied to this, let me just say, the only reason I felt safe calling her a bench was because no one would say a dang thing to my boss, and her underlings hated her just as much too. These were really horrible, horrible bosses. Our next story is, my partner exposed her client's true character, and it was hilarious. We own a vet clinic, and I'm the founder. We closed down a little early, and one of my partner's clients worked at the clinic. I was walking our family dog on the clinic premises and saw them and approached them with a smile and asked them if they would like for me to open the front gate for them. They said yes please, and they left. I went home and told my partner, I think some of your clients were still there, so I let them out the gate. They seemed nice. The next day, they go to visit my partner at the clinic and tell her there's a gypsy vandal at the clinic with an aggressive pit bull. My partner laughed and said, "That's my life partner. He owns the clinic." Instantly knowing they were caught in a lie, they went red in the face and completely changed the demeanor. It was a small but satisfying win for me today. Alrighty then, not a whole lot to add to this one. Let's just chuckle and move on. Our next story is, I wore the most revealing shorts I own because my neighbor's husband got his feelings hurt by his wife talking about me mowing my front yard shirtless. I, 34-year-old male, have been in my current neighborhood now for going on 3 years. For all 3 years, on especially hot days, I've always mowed my yard, usually shirtless and in shorts. I feel like this is a fairly normal thing for most men to do, at least from what I've seen in my neighborhood. Earlier this year, my neighbors directly across from me, couple maybe in their high 30s, have become a bit of a problem. The wife works from home and the husband doesn't. I also work from home, so sometimes I mow during random moments of the day. The wife always makes small talk with me, and we run into each other often when she's doing yard work or walks around the neighborhood. Fast forward to last week. I was mowing around 4 to 5 p.m.-ish and just wrapped up mowing, and his wife was out watering plants, so she came by and we chatted it up. Not much later, her husband pulls up. I say hi and we chat a bit longer, then we go our separate ways. Later that night, I get a random DM from this man. No idea how he had my info, and he went on this long rant about how I'm a home worker and I need to cover up when mowing my own yard. I told him to kick rocks and stop being an insecure little prick. To top it off, the next time I mowed, I ensured that I took it up a notch and wore some revealing shorts to match not wearing a shirt. Pretty petty, but I don't care. I wonder if this has less to do with the fact that you're not wearing a shirt and more so the fact that you're talking to his wife without wearing a shirt. Sounds a little insecure to me on behalf of this man, but hey, I would have done the same thing. Good for you, OP. Princess Snarkycorn commented, "Hey, you posted this yesterday and I got my hopes up that there is an update. Sir, we need to know this guy's response." Story time. My dad used to mow the lawn in his swim trunks every weekend, even if friends or family were over. He's a sweaty man. One time he ran into one of my friends at the mall and he said hi, but my friend totally didn't recognize him. When he did, he loudly said, "Oh, hi, Mr. P. I didn't recognize you with your clothes on." He started wearing shirts. Our next story is, she stayed silent, so I did too. Many years ago, my ex and I were off again. He was a habitual cheater, but always managed to maintain that shadow of a doubt. He went to stay with his brother and sister-in-law during the split, who we used to spend quite a bit of time with. I knew sister-in-law knew everything, but wouldn't tell me. Keeping the peace, minding her own business, I understand. Months later, my ex and her husband, brothers, went to work together in another state temporarily. In an attempt to try to win me back, my ex spilled all the beans about what his brother was doing. He thought he was making himself look better in comparison to his lying, cheating brother. When she and I were around each other back home, I could tell she was wondering. She knew something was up. I would always stop short of revealing anything, then just go silent in a knowing but not telling way. I was just keeping the peace and minding my own business, too. Bubbly Manufacturer commented, "Maybe she thought you knew and just chose to put up with it, since you did say he was a habitual cheater and let go of things that made you suspicious." OP replied to this, "That's a decent perspective, except one of the reasons we were split was because of the cheating, so clearly not okay with it. It is possible that she was being manipulated the same way I was and just couldn't quite prove it all. The happy ending here is that I got out of that situation years ago. It really messed up my head for a while." Our next story is, kept calling me sir on the phone, so I gave him a taste of his own medicine. I'm a female, but I'm often mistaken for a man when speaking on the phone. One day, I called my insurance company for support, and the representative kept addressing me as sir. I politely corrected him, letting him know that I'm a woman, but he continued to say, "Yes, sir." So I decided to turn the tables. As the conversation went on, I started responding to him with, "Yes, ma'am." After a few times, he finally snapped and said, "I'm not a woman, I'm a man." But I just kept saying, "Yes, ma'am." Eventually, he got so frustrated that he hung up. To this day, I still laugh hard whenever I think about that conversation. Yeah, a lot of people like to administer medicine, but when they're served their own medicine, it tastes a little bit different, don't it? Bob Villa's beard commented, "If QA was listening to that call, that lady is going to get reprimanded for sure." And Sharp Ad 6336 replied, I'd be willing to bet that any call where the rep hangs up first is flagged for review. Our next story is, girl tried to cut me out of a moment. Was at a friend's housewarming that we took to a bar crawl. One of their friends ordered a round of shots for everyone, and one girl started helping pass out the shots. This girl is a friend of the host, and as of the last few months, has been pretty shysty to me, but figure we can be friendly and at least cordial. I see her hand a shot to her guy friend. I suspect she's interested in him, who's chatting with me. Unclear she noticed I didn't have a shot. She then raised her shot glass, getting everyone ready to take a shot. Because someone brought a +1 after the shots were ordered, we were missing one shot for me. The guy who ordered the shot sees I don't have anything and tells me they're missing a shot, and I guess people overhear and pause. The host goes to the bar to try and get another. Not wanting to hold up the toast, I quietly gesture, "Don't worry, it's okay." Simultaneously, I'm hearing the girl loudly proclaiming that it's okay, aka it's okay that I'm missing a shot, indicating that everyone should take their shots, before I had visibly confirmed it was okay. Her guy friend sees I don't have a shot and kindly offers me to drink some of his, and at first I say no, but then he presses, so I agree. In the corner of my eye, I see the girl. She's standing next to us, watching with disdain as I hand the glass back to him. If only I had my own shot. What's that meme from The Office that they always post? My, how the turntables. Yeah, that would be my reply to this one. Dangerous Brother 85 replied, guess the main character didn't realize people could see her becoming the villain. Kelzer 66 replied, classic. She thought she was slick, but everyone saw the game she was playing. Always funny when someone doesn't realize they're the one looking bad in the situation. Our next story is, I've stopped using exclamation marks when responding to emails from my boss. My mom died last month, and my boss was a real Richard about the whole situation. He's always been hard to work for, but he actually told me to get over it because her death was creating extra work for him. That was the straw, and this camel's back broke. I can't quit my job, but I'm taking steps to move to a better role, and I know I need to keep the peace until then. I always start emails with a positive first sentence, something like a simple "good morning" or "I hope you're having a nice day." I still do this on emails to my boss, but I've omitted exclamation points entirely. I've been here over a decade, so it's extremely noticeable to anyone who works with me closely, and it's driving him crazy. His messages seem frazzled, and he's frantically using exclamation points in every email, something he's never done before. It's so stupid, but I can tell it's breaking him. You know, it's funny how everybody has their own signature style of emailing and texting. Some people use emojis and exclamation points, and some people don't use any punctuation at all. And then it's once someone deviates from that signature style, for lack of a better term, it's just like a glitch in the Matrix or something. It's like, whoa, what's going on? Are you okay? Oh, this is scary. Kipster Dude replied, sometimes it really is the little things. There's a lady in my department who hates my guts, so sometimes I go by her office to use the shredder and shred things one page at a time so it takes longer. Our next story is, my manager always called for a 20-minute team meeting after work, unpaid. So I finally had enough. By the way, this is not in America, so US labor laws don't apply here. This was a small team of 10 people that the manager was assigned to, myself included. I was the last person to be hired on the team. Everybody was my senpai, and on the first day I worked there, they called a team meeting after work. We'd log off our computers at 4:55 p.m., go to the meeting room, and we clocked out at 5:15 p.m. Every day, like clockwork. I said, no problem. That's an extra 2.5 hours on the bi-weekly paycheck, and we didn't have to do any actual work except listen. When my first payday came, I saw my full 80 hours, but the 2.5 hours were nowhere to be found. So I asked a couple of the guys if they only got paid 80 hours too. They all confirmed it. We were not getting paid for these meetings. The shift ends, and once again the manager called for the daily team meeting and to log off at 4:55 p.m., then head to the meeting room. I do so, and I sit there for 5 minutes. As soon as it hit 5 p.m., I get up and say, I need to be somewhere important, with everyone's eyes on me. The manager says, okay. I leave the room, clock out, and go home. The next day, I do the same, and again, and again. The manager never stops me. Then the manager pulls me to the side one day and asks what's this important thing that I need to get to after work every day. And I tell them it's a personal matter, and he leaves it at that. Pretty soon, it catches on. the other guys start leaving right after me, and eventually, within a matter of days of me starting to leave at 5, everyone else started doing it too. The manager started scheduling the meetings for 4:40 p.m. All it took was one person to not take this crap anymore. Yeah, I hate it when employers try to make you do work off the clock, basically volunteer work at that point. Even if it's just a meeting and there's no, liability concerns, it's still inconsiderate of people's time. So, yeah, I'd say that this is a great way to handle that issue and squash it. Rather Be Warm replied, had an intimidating boss that insisted that once a week our team would meet at the hotel bar down the street for a drink. It was largely meant for him to pontificate and served no other purpose than to feed his ego. We hired a new engineer for the team, who attended one time. The next week he skipped, and the next in-house meeting, the boss demanded to know what was so important to skip. Newbie told the boss flat out that after-work hours were his, period, and he wasn't going to waste after-work hours to be bored by someone needing their ego stroked. And considering the dollars already spent recruiting him, to let him know if it's going to be a real problem, and he'll quit and move to one of our competitors who also recruited him. The rest of us slowly bowed out of the bar meets, too. Our next story is, he took my €900 deposit. I suspended his license. This happened last year when I moved to Europe, France, for an internship. It's important to mention that this wasn't paid. I applied for myself to boost my CV. So I found a tiny apartment and signed a lease. €900 deposit. Everything went just fine till the last week. My landlord said he would send me my €900 deposit via bank transfer after a couple days, meaning I'd be back to the US by that time. But my friend was staying, so I kinda felt safe. Guess what? The dumb here told him when I was going back to the US, so by this time, he stopped replying. I almost gave up, but after Googling a little, I decided to report him to IRSAF and impots.gov. Turned out, he had been renting the place incorrectly and illegally to students for 3 years. It wasn't full declared. I'm not sure about the details here. 2 months later, he got fined for more than $5,000 and received a legal notice preventing him from renting again without registering. My friend had to move out. That sucks. But I learned something better than anything in my internship. If you challenge me, I'll fight back. Yeah, landlord was crooked, so honestly, he shouldn't be doing business anyway. So yeah, way to shut him down, OP. Way to shut him down. Our next story is, he kept stealing my Hawaii mug, so I let him ruin his own organization. I live in Colorado, but had this souvenir mug from a trip to Hawaii. Bright blue, volcano design, and clearly labeled with my name on the bottom. I kept it in the office kitchen. Mark, who apparently thinks personal property is optional, kept using it. I asked him to stop. He smirked and said, "It's just a mug." So I made it his. Over the weekend, I smeared a thin layer of canned cat food under the rim and let it sit sealed in a bag. On Monday, I left it out clean and dry. He took the bait. By mid-morning, people were asking what the heck that smell was. Mark looked nauseous. Someone said it smelled like a corpse microwaved in fish oil. He dumped the mug in the sink and left early. I didn't say a word, but I did start a quiet conversation later about how gross it is when people use each other's stuff. He's been drinking from paper cups ever since. People still avoid the break room when he's in it. The mug's back on my desk now. Still smells like victory. Yeah, so 2 opportunities to be a decent human being here. First of all, you don't use someone else's stuff without asking, and then when they ask you to stop and you continue to do it, yeah, you deserve to ingest a little rotting corpse, cat food, whatever was going on there. Does smell like victory, I agree. Teach BS commented, "So funny, I had a coffee cup from Egypt that someone freaking took off my desk. Saw her in the break room with it. I put out an email that I had a cup in Egypt that disappeared from my desk. Back on my desk the next day. Everyone saw her using it. She said I left it in the break room. No, I did not. I rinsed it every day and put it back on my desk." Our next story is, created a problem to keep my annoying neighbor occupied and get some peace. In the early 90s, we bought a new house on a lot that was recently severed and sold from the neighbor's property. It was a large corner lot, divided into 2 parcels. The back parcel was originally intended as a second driveway to connect the side road to the neighbors, but was mistakenly sold to us. Our neighbor, a known grumpy old guy, insisted that this back parcel was his property and was never intended to be sold. He and his lawyer messed up. He would often stand there, right in front of our bedroom windows to kind of mark his property. Trying to have a reasonable conversation with him was impossible. I repeatedly told him that I had the deed and that the property line wasn't going to change. His wife was rarely seen, as she had limited mobility and spent most of her time watching TV connected to a C-band satellite dish. At the time, I was working in wireless and had access to test equipment. To find a way to keep the neighbor occupied and hopefully give us some space, I decided to generate interference that would jam his satellite signal. I set it up on a timer so their signal would cut out 10 minutes before the hour and come back 10 minutes after, meaning they would consistently miss the beginnings and ends of their TV programs. This definitely kept him busy trying to figure out what was wrong. He even called out technicians, but of course, the issue never occurred when they were there. I could often hear his frustrated outbursts, and I imagined his wife was adding to the pressure. After a few weeks of this, I walked over to him while he was fiddling with the dish and casually mentioned that I worked in wireless and had some knowledge of satellite communications and maybe I could have a look. He was immediately interested, so I climbed up the ladder, pretended to adjust something, gave him some technical-sounding nonsense about what I had found, and then told him it was fixed. I then stopped the interference coming from my house. A few days later, he came over to thank me profusely, saying I had fixed it when no one else could. From that day forward, he was the friendliest neighbor and never mentioned the contested piece of land again. Well, glad we got a happy ending here. Sometimes it's not necessarily about the journey, but the destination. Now we're all friends, right? Right. Pomegranate plus 6526 commented, "That is totally hilarious. Great way to get him on your side and some petty revenge. One of the maintenance guys where I used to work did something similar. It was a vocational high school with very large high bay labs, so it was difficult to regulate the temperature at the beginning of warm and cold seasons. They had one teacher who complained constantly about the temperature, so my buddy installed a pseudo thermostat in the lab for the teacher. That way, whenever it felt cold, they could adjust the temp up and vice versa for warm. Literally, the teacher never complained again for the 10 plus years I worked there. He said he found the thermostat in a box back in storage one day and thought, what the heck, why not? So he attached it to the wall literally with no wiring or anything, but it looked real." Our next story is, ex-husband's ex-girlfriend gets her assumptions and her butt handed to her. Many years ago, I was married to a jerk who cheated on me repeatedly and who was verbally abusive. The day he turned physically abusive, I filed for divorce. We had a son who was 5 when we divorced. Cut to a year after the divorce. Ex had a girlfriend, one that stuck around longer than many of the others had. I strongly suspected that she had been one of his affair partners. She was divorced from a wealthy man. She was begrudgingly polite to me, but always had to smirkingly let me know that she had money and felt that she was superior to me in every way, as was her son to mine, and that she looked down on me. This woman, let's call her Janie, had a boy my son's age. Let's call him John. Janie and my ex would occasionally ask me to babysit her son. I always said yes because, number one, it wasn't the kid's fault that my ex was a jerk and that his mother was a slime that slept with married men. And two, the kids got along and my son would be seeing him anyways on dad's custody days. Why punish the children because their parents were jerks? Let's call my boy Sam. John wasn't a bad kid, he was just incredibly entitled. He once told me that I was poor because I cleaned my house myself and didn't have a maid. I pointed out that he was poor too, as all of the money in his world came from his dad's alimony payments to his mom, but that he, John, had no money of his own, which made him even poorer than I was. One conversation John and I had at my house went like this. John says, "I want toast and jam." I say, "Okay." "Do you have marmalade?" "Yes." "Do you have whole wheat or whole grain bread?" "I have whole wheat bread." "Good, then make me toast with marmalade on whole wheat bread and cut the crusts off. I hope it's good marmalade." For some reason, that conversation has always stuck with me. Many years later, long after my ex and Janie had broken up and our children were grown, I ran into Janie at a local event. As an aside, many people thought that because I was this tiny, poor, struggling single mom with no help financially from my ex or anyone else, and my having to work constantly to keep a roof over our heads, that I wasn't a good mother and that I wouldn't be able to raise a child with any kind of stability or order in his life. Add to this, my ex continued to be abusive to the point I had to get restraining orders. Pretty much everyone expected me to fail as a parent, and my child to fail in life. Janie was no exception. She was exceptionally smug in her belief that I was a terrible mother. Truth be told, I was a loving but very strict mom who did homework with my son every single day. I made a full breakfast, lunch, and dinner from scratch daily. We ate together every night. I was always home and available for my son, and always very hands-on. I even worked an extra job to hire a math tutor when it seemed my son might be struggling with math. The tutor, who had his PhD in mathematics, told me that he thought my son was a genius. I thought he was joking. He wasn't. As it turns out, Janie's boy, John, had totally gone off the rails. Far, far away from his marmalade days, with no life skills, John had turned to drugs, dropped out of school, had become a heroin addict. He had been in and out of rehab, living on the street at times, but Janie still seemed to be enabling him. After telling me all this, she condescendingly put her hand on my arm, leaned in and said, "Sam too? Poor Sam. He was never very bright. I know he was terrible in school." While Sam was very, very bright, it was true, he had been awful in grade school through high school. In fact, he almost failed out of high school. I was in the office having meetings with the principal almost weekly. As it turned out, Sam was just incredibly bored. I leaned away from Janie, patted her shoulder, chuckled, and said, "Well, actually, Sam has 3 STEM degrees. He did his undergrad with a double major in physics and astronomy, thinking he was going to be an astrophysicist. He graduated with, I think, like a 4.3 in both, but then changed his mind about his career path and got his advanced degree in nanophysics. He's currently working in a prestigious lab engineering semiconductors for rocketry, so I guess that makes him a rocket scientist. He has an amazing girlfriend who's a lawyer and who just made partner. They both make 6 figures, and he bought a house. I'm so blessed that he turned out so well." Then I patted her arm and said, "Nice seeing you. I'm so sorry to hear about John. I hope he can get his life on track. I meant this. He was a sweet kid." Okay, lie, but I couldn't be mean with the situation. A mom's petty revenge through our kid's success and failures. Years in the making, but oh so satisfying. So as I say, the best way to get revenge on your haters is to just continue to be successful, and it'll just make them burn inside. Love it. Love to hear how the son turned his life around and, is absolutely kicking butt. Avid Learner Bot replied, "I've always said it's not about the money or fancy degrees. It's all in the love and hard work we put into our kids. Take my husband, for instance. He's a high school dropout, but our daughter swears by his pancakes. As a mom, though, hearing this woman's story just warms my heart." Our next story is, I reply to work emails and Slack messages using provocative quotes. I'm a teacher of 12 years, first year in the US, and due to desperate circumstances, I've been working at a religious school since August. Let me start by saying, I'm not religious, but several of my coworkers are. Extremely so, with about a third of them being born-again evangelists, or something like that. Now, the first month of school year, my boss didn't give us a single break. That means that I didn't get the opportunity to eat or pee at work until halfway through September. As I was further denied legally required breaks, my boss laughed it off, stating that because we work with kids, we're exempt from California's labor laws. The principal himself barely shows up more than half the time, and if he does, he leaves by noon. Now, as the year unfolded, I've come to find myself bullied, dehumanized, and publicly shamed by my colleagues. I've had the school secretary yell and berate me several times in front of my students. I've had a lazy, toxic coworker call me out for simple mistakes in front of other coworkers on Slack, trying to humiliate me and virtue signal herself for picking up the pieces for me. Most of the time, if I'm asking a question on Slack, no one answers. There's so much more, but I won't even go on. It's now the end of the year, and despite being well loved by the students and their parents, I have not had my contract renewed by my misogynistic boss because I'm a female who tries standing up for ethics, to no avail. As the year draws to a close, my coworkers stand in front of my classroom door loudly planning the end-of-the-year potluck that I wasn't invited to. Half of them ignore me completely. They continue to shame me on Slack. So now, since they're so Catholic and not the love others kind of Catholics, more so the let's use Jesus as a shield for being crap humans type of Catholics, I've changed my work profile picture to Jesus, and when they send out Slack messages or work emails, I just reply with Bible quotes about ignoring evil and not succumbing to your enemies. They are ticked. I'm delighted. It's a tough situation to be in, OP, but I'm glad that you found a way to at least kind of clap back at them in a way that seems to fit their MO. So, yeah, good job. Nekojita8 commented, "Dang, being a teacher is hard enough with all the bullcrap we have to go through with coworkers and admin. Honestly, one of the main reasons why teachers quit the profession is due to lack of support by admin, and also coworkers creating a hostile work environment, not to mention all the unpaid overtime. Let them get a taste of their own values with those Bible quotes. Nice touch. I have a feeling we would have been besties if we'd worked together. 1 week to go. I've got 3 more. You've got this." Our next story is, I started practicing opera at 6 a.m. because my neighbor complained about my noisy coffee grinder. I, 28-year-old female, have lived in my apartment for about 2 years now. Every morning, I grind fresh coffee beans around 7:30 a.m. before work. It takes maybe 30 seconds, tops. Never had a single complaint until the new guy moved in next door 4 months ago. This dude, probably mid-40s, works nights apparently, but instead of talking to me like a normal person, he started leaving passive-aggressive notes under my door. First it was, "Some people are trying to sleep." Then, "The coffee grinder is excessive." Finally, last month, he escalated to filing a formal noise complaint with the landlord. The landlord laughed it off since 7:30 a.m. is well within reasonable hours, but Prince Charming next door didn't stop there. He started banging on the walls whenever I used any kitchen appliance. Blender? Bang, bang. Microwave beeping? Bang, bang, bang. So I decided if he wants to play the noise game, I'll play. Turns out I took opera lessons in college and still remember most of the vocals. Now I practice scales and arias every morning at 6 a.m. sharp. Completely legal quiet hours end at 6 in our building. The best part? When he came pounding on my door next week screaming about the singing, I innocently told him I'm pursuing my passion and that music is meant to be shared. He tried filing another complaint, but the landlord told him that practicing music during daytime hours is perfectly acceptable. I've been doing this for 3 weeks now. This morning I started learning Wagner. Those pieces are really long. Petty? Absolutely. But hey, at least my vocal range is improving. Your neighbor had it coming. It doesn't sound like OP is doing anything obnoxious. Neighbor's just someone, a miserable person that just rolls out of bed every morning and chooses to be a jerk. So yeah, practice that opera. I hope you make it. Unknown J Wild commented, "That's odd that he can hear even your microwave beeping. What kind of apartments are these? I can't hear a thing from my neighbors. The walls must be paper thin. Either that or he has Superman hearing, which in that case, I would suggest to him to find a place out in the country to live in." Iced Mercury said, "He would hate the country. Having lived there myself, I can tell you that birds get up at the crack of dawn and immediately start screaming." Our next story is, made neighbor run over the trash he kept piling at my door. I live in a small studio apartment, and due to the layout of the building, my whole apartment is directly above the downstairs neighbor's garage. I picked the apartment because I have a large dog with a lot of energy and didn't want to have anyone living below me. Big mistake. The downstairs neighbor keeps finding new ways to disrupt my daily life. In winter, he'd warm up his truck in his garage for 30 plus minutes with the radio cranked so loud it rattled my dishes in the cabinet. He'd then leave his garage open all day, making it harder to hear my apartment. Same in the summer, leaves the door open all day, against building rules, making it almost impossible to cool down my apartment. And on top of that, instead of putting his garbage outside his apartment door, he likes it up on my doorstep because he stores his garbage cans in the garage. At least once a week, I find his garbage blocking my door. I've spoken to him in building management several times and nothing changed. This weekend was my breaking point. He had a party on Saturday, and I came home to my door literally being blocked by a half-dozen overflowing bags of cans and bottles and garbage. I took all of them and stacked them in front of his garage door. I set them so they tip over when he opened the door so he'd grab them. Instead, he must not have noticed and just backed out of his garage and dragged garbage all over the parking lot. I got to watch him spend a good 30 minutes picking it all up and rebagging it before he could leave. Hopefully this means no more garbage piled up at my door. This is actually a very funny visual to just close your eyes and envision. But again, sounds like this guy had it coming just for being an inconsiderate neighbor. I mean, come on, guys. Coder Joe 1 replied, "If he leaves the garage door open all day, you can buy a garage door opener remote compatible with his door. You'll have to go into his garage to pair it, but once that's done, you can open or close his door anytime you want." Our next story is, "My boss called me an autistic robot and stuck me with the worst job, so I changed the rerouting phone number to mine and changed the security camera passwords. My first job was customer service based, and it was a nightmare. I worked at a car rental yard that had a car wash next to it. They were owned by the same person, but on paper, they were two separate businesses. They worked in tandem though. The rental cars were cleaned at the car wash, but the car wash was open to the public as well. Some absolutely freaked up crap happened there. The first of which was probably the time someone had a murder victim in a barrel in his car, and he used the car wash to wash away the blood that leaked out. But a lot of other stuff happened there as well, so I had to become quite familiar with the security system since I had police come for footage often. On the weekends, the car rental yard would close at 2 p.m., but the car wash had to be manned until 5 p.m. That's because some car wash services required hands-on work from a professional. We were all employees of the car rental yard, but I was the only one treated as a car wash employee, so I was the only one who had to stay behind to man the car wash. The reason I was stuck with that job is because management didn't like me, not because of something I had said or done, but because of my personality. They thought I was an autistic robot, which are words they actually said to me. To put into perspective how much they didn't like me, I worked there for 5 years and not once did I get invited to a Christmas party. At first, I figured it was because there was no party to get invited to, but nope. Turns out they had parties every year, but they excluded me on purpose and made sure everyone knew to keep it a secret from me. One year, though, a new hire accidentally let it slip, and when I asked management if it was true, they said yes, and that I wasn't invited because I made people uncomfortable. They actually used the phrase autistic robot to describe my personality. So that explained why I was segregated to the car wash section by myself instead of the rental section. Before I started, they rotated who was a car wash employee so it was more equal, but when I started, I was quickly stuck there by myself. At first, I didn't understand why, but it all made sense in the light of that comment. So I started to resent being there a lot. I decided that if they didn't have respect for me, then I didn't have to respect them. Since they would ditch me at 2 p.m. on the weekends, leaving me to work alone until 5 p.m., I decided I would stop doing work in that time. I would have just packed up and left after they did, but I had to set the alarm and they knew when the alarm was set, so I had to be around until 5 p.m. My plan was to just sit in the office and watch Netflix or something until 5 p.m., but customers kept showing up and interrupting me. I figured out that if I wanted to do nothing interrupted, I had to make the place look closed. So I started packing up after they left. Then I'd just sit in the dark office watching Netflix and eating Indian food from the restaurant down the street. It became a ritual. I'd get a nice curry and naan and chill for a few hours on company time. This worked for a couple of weeks until a customer decided to ring. Up until that point, customers who showed up looking for a deluxe hand wash would either leave or settle for an auto wash. But this guy who rang really wanted a deluxe wash. He Googled our opening hours, realized we should be open, so he called. The thing is, though, the car wash didn't have a phone. All cars went to the car rental offices next door, and when those ring out, the call gets redirected to the boss's phone. So I was sitting in the dark car wash office eating my curry when I got a call from my boss. He told me about the phone call and that he saw me on security cameras sitting in the dark. He was not happy. I managed to escape most of the ire due to the time it was. It was about 4:30, so I managed to convince him I only closed 30 minutes early instead of 3 hours early. He still wasn't happy, but it could have been a lot worse. I wasn't deterred though. I thought I had worked out all the kinks in my brilliant plan, but 2 remained. Customers who called would reach the boss, and the boss had remote access to the cameras. Luckily though, I knew the admin password to the cameras thanks to having to retrieve footage for the cops, and the password was the same for the phone account. So I changed the rerouting number to mine and reset the password to the cameras to default. I thought about changing it to something else entirely, but I figured I'd have plausible deniability if it was discovered the password changed. If it was reset to default, it could have been a glitch or an accident. Besides that though, I had a feeling that they only looked at the cameras if they felt they needed to, So I figured as long as they didn't get a reason to check, then they'd never realize they were logged out of the cameras due to an incorrect password. And with all rerouting calls going to me instead, they would never have a reason to check the cameras. So every weekend when they left, I'd change the number to mine, get my curry, and shut up shop. Afterwards, I'd change the number back so they wouldn't find out. I did that for 6 months without getting caught. Only about 3 or 4 people called during that time, and I just told them the Google hours were wrong. In my opinion, they deserved worse. Any business willing to discriminate against employees for something like being an autistic robot deserves to be sued into bankruptcy 100 times over. Freak those people. I agree. As soon as you call someone an autistic robot, all bets are off. Gauntlet is thrown down, let's go, right? And then the discrimination around the Christmas parties or holiday stuff, that's just like icing on the crap cake. So yeah, do what you gotta do to make them miserable. P Against Win commented, I don't know how come the owner didn't notice he isn't getting car wash sales on weekends nor any calls. And how come he didn't check how many hours you were sitting in that office in the dark alone in that incident where he caught you? But what I don't get most is why do you keep working for such a nightmare of a boss? And OP replied to this, it was very rare for him to get calls outside of business hours, so not receiving any calls was normal. He was still getting sales from the car wash due to the auto wash and self-serve bays. He could check the cameras live, but he couldn't access the recordings remotely. I don't work there anymore. I left the job years ago. It ended after 6 months, not because I got caught again, but because I quit. Our next story is the pettiest thing I've ever done. Today, I checked my calendar to see when Father's Day was, and I noticed a reminder set for June 11th. So I clicked OK. It said 30% equity check Revenge album and photos. So I opened my Photos app and there was an album labeled Revenge, and in it was a screenshot of an IG comment section of someone telling me, give it 3 years and you'll have negative 30% equity, basically telling me I was stupid for buying my house. Well, it's been 3 years and I'm currently at plus 30% equity, so he was off by 60%. When I searched my comments, narrowing it down to the actual date, based on the date of the screenshot, the post must have been removed. So I searched his IG name and nothing came up under accounts. However, I was able to find tagged photos of him and saw he changed his IG name. Well, I decided to drop him a line. As the pettiest man on the planet, I had to remind you 3 years ago you said I'd have negative 30% equity. I currently have plus 30% equity, so you were off by about 60%. Once again, silence your haters and doubters by just being successful. HJoe1210 commented, my brother admitted I was right about something, after having argued with me extensively about it, on June 1st, 2018. Dang right I put it in my calendar, and every year on June 1st I send him a happy anniversary along with the screenshots. It's a good day today. No Weather 4759 replied, I work in a lab where we often debate how to accomplish goals. One day, someone at work said I was right about something and I wrote it down on a piece of paper. Date, time, No Weather 4759 was right. Then got a coworker to initial it as a witness. Over the next year, every few months I'd pull it out of my coat pocket and say, remember that one time? Our next story is, a client kept saying, make it pop. So I made one version that literally had a pop sound on every click. Had this client who kept saying, make it pop in every revision. That was literally the only feedback I got for like 5 rounds. Asking what he meant by that didn't help, and I always ended up doing a lot of guesswork. On the 3rd round, I tweaked a few elements. On the 4th round, I reworked the layout. On 5th round, I added subtle animation. Still, can you make it pop more? I asked what that meant, and he said, you're a software guy, you know better than me. So I made a version where every click made an actual pop sound. Buttons, links, inputs, everything had pop sound. No explanation. I sent it for him for a next round of review and said, let me know if this feels poppy enough. He called me immediately. Why does it make sounds? I said, you told me to make it pop. I finally took it literally. We actually laughed. I never heard make it pop again. Suddenly, he knew how to give real feedback with clear notes and no nonsense. It ended up being one of the smoothest projects I've done. Well, glad to hear that you were at least able to share a mutual laugh here, and ultimately both sides get what they want. The project pops, and OP actually has constructive feedback, so yeah, win-win-win-win-win. Coder Joe1 replied, getting clear feedback is nearly impossible, but the worst if conflicting feedback from a committee. Most customers barely have an idea of what the end product should look like. Our next story is Park & Company parking space. Enjoy being blocked for a few days. Story from my boyfriend's work. The company owns 2 parking spaces in front of the building. They have a sign there saying that these parking spaces are owned by the company, so other people don't park here. One lady parked there. She probably didn't notice a sign. It happens. So when the company vehicle got back and found their space occupied, they parked it in front of this lady's car, blocking her. That same day, no one came to ask to re-park so this lady can get away with her car. On the second day, the lady came in storming and demanding they park company vehicle out of her way immediately so she can get in her car, and that she had to take the taxi yesterday because nobody was working when she came for the car. She came late. The guy she was talking to just said, with a smirk on his face, "We're sorry, we do not have keys from the vehicle. Our boss has them and he's not here. Please come tomorrow." He said that with the keys in his pocket. Maybe try being nice next time. Guess she needed to take a taxi that day again. Yeah, so this is one of these cases, whether it was an honest mistake or not, she kind of sunk her own boat by just being rude and angry. You know what I'm saying? She's the one that messed up and is still somehow kind of the victim here, you know what I mean? So yeah, grab the taxi one more day, and on the ride home, maybe think about being a little bit more humble. Feel the Avocado commented, "We had someone park in our company car park on a Friday afternoon. Our techs all arrived back at the depot and parked their vans. We have more vans than car parks, so we put a couple in the laneway. I got a call from our overnight help desk saying some member of the public couldn't get their car out. Called them up and had to tell them it's a private car park as per the signs, and the techs don't go back to work until Monday." Our next story is, be careful who you treat like crap. Not me, but a good friend who's a very talented and in-demand executive recruiter. She was interviewing candidates for a high-level, high-paying job. She met with a candidate who she recognized as a manager who had interviewed her years ago. He treated her like garbage, was rude, demeaning, and told her there was no way he'd hire her. But she's a professional and didn't say anything and continued the interview. She thought he was looking at her kind of oddly, and finally he said, "Have we met before?" She replied that they had, many years ago. He said, "Did I interview you?" She said that he had. He was quiet for a minute and said, "There's no way I'm getting this job, is there?" She replied, "That's correct." He just sighed and said, "I'm 57 years old, unemployed for 14 months, and pretty much lost everything. I guess that's the sleeping in the bed you made concept, huh?" She replied, "Sounds right to me. You can show yourself out." Karma is a boomerang. Enough said. Zacious T commented, "At least he recognized what he had done was messing up his present prospects. So many people are oblivious to that and have no regrets or remorse for their past stupid actions. Hopefully, it's also changing his attitude and how he treats people in all different situations. It's too late for many jobs he's interviewing for, it sounds like, but it isn't too late for life in general." Mother Goose 1957 replied, "Sounds to me like that's not the first time in an interview that his past treatment of people has come back to haunt him." Alright everybody, that's all the time we got today. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and comment down below. And if you want to check out any of our other videos, click the video on the right. I got nothing else for ya. I will see you all next time.